How would you explain to a beginner what React is and why it is needed?
React is a JavaScript library designed for creating dynamic and interactive user interfaces. It is unique in that it allows developers to build complex web applications by separating the interface into many small manageable components, making development and maintenance easier.
What is Virtual DOM?
It is innovative technology used in React to improve the speed and efficiency of interface updates. It is a lightweight copy of Real DOM 3, allowing React to first make changes to the virtual DOM, and then, by calculating the most efficient way to apply these changes, update the Real DOM.
What are the lifecycle methods of class components? How to achieve similar behavior in functional components?
It is component did mount, component did update, component will unmount. You can achieve similar behavior in functional components using the useEffect hook.
How to catch an error in a functional component?
Use the error boundary hook, or to handle errors inside the component using try-catch blocks.
What distinguishes pure functions? What are they characterized by?
Pure functions are characterized by the following features. Predictability. They return the same result for the same input data. Absence of side effects. They do not modify external variables or the program's state. Independence. The result is not dependent on execution context. Execution context in programming refers to the environment in which the code is executed. Composability. They easily combine together, making the code more modular.
What are side effects? Is accessing local storage considered a side effect?
Side effects are any changes in state that occur outside the current function or code block and can affect the program behavior. Accessing local storage is considered a side effect.
What types of storage exist in the browser?
Local storage, session storage, indexed DB, and cookies.
What is cookies? Why is it needed? How does it conceptually differ from local storage?
Cookies are small pieces of data that a website can send to user computer to store information about the user or their preferences. They are often used for authentication, sessions, tracking, user activity, and other purposes. The main difference from local storage is that cookies are automatically sent by the browser to the server with every request to the website, whereas local storage remains on the user computer and it's only available on the client side.
Have you ever used optimization in a web application?
Yes, here are few examples. First, component memoization. Using React.memo to prevent unnecessary re-renders of components. Second is lazy loading. Loading components or resources only when they are actually needed, using React.lazy. Next, rendering optimization. Using should-component-update in class components or React.memo in functional components to prevent unnecessary rendering. Also, I used developer tools such as Chrome DevTools and React DevTools.
Why is use callback needed?
It is used to memorize callback functions to prevent them from being recreated on every component render, which can improve performance.
What is React Lazy?
It's a function that allows you to load React component with delay. It's used for dynamically loading components only when they are actually needed.
What files do we get as output when building React?
When building a React application, we get static JavaScript files, CSS, and other resources. These files contain optimized and minimized code for the application.
How will React Lazy affect the structure of a React build?
The main advantage of React.Lazy is its ability to split the code into smaller parts. By default, when building a React application, you will typically get one or two larger chunks of code. However, with React.Lazy, you can partition the application in separate, smaller modules. React.Lazy helps divide the functionality into smaller chunks. For example, when navigation to a different page, the specific chunk responsible for that page will load. Instead of having just one or two chunks, you might up with multiple smaller ones, for example around 20. The segmentation results in faster application loading time. However, there are trade-offs. As the application loads asynchronously, and during this period, it may not display anything.
What is functional programming paradigm?
The functional programming paradigm in React means using functional components as the main building blocks when developing applications. Instead of class component, functions are used that take props and return JSX elements. This approach prompts the creation of more declarative and modular code, as well as improves component reusability. Declarative programming is a style where you describe the desired outcome rather than the sequence of steps to achieve that outcome.
React, Redux, where can you find pure functions there?
Pure functions are often met in Redux in reducers, which are pure functions without side effects. A reducer is a pure function that takes the previous state and action and returns the next state, a new version of the previous one.
What is a thunk? Why is it called that?
It is a function that performs some asynchronous tasks or operations and can dispatch regular actions. It is a function where side effects are allowed. It is named so for historical reasons and the concept of delayed execution.
What is Redux Saga based on? What are generators? What is the yield keyword?
Redux Saga is based on use of JavaScript generators. Generators are special type of functions that can pause their execution and resume it later. The yield keyword is used in generators to pause execution and return a value.
Can you name the pros and cons of React?
The pros of React include its component-based architecture, virtual DOM for performance optimization, large community and support. The cons include a steep learning curve and the need for setting up development tools.
We have the useEffect hook. Can you tell me everything you know about it?
It's a replacement for lifecycle methods in class components. It's used for performing side effects, such as server requests, setting intervals, and changing the title. If no dependencies are passed without brackets, then useEffect runs every time the component is re-rendered. First, the content is rendered, then useEffect is triggered. If dependency inside brackets is passed, for example counter, then useEffect runs the first time on the initial render, and then every time the counter changes. If brackets without content, it runs once when the component mounts.
What will happen if you don't pass an array of dependencies to useEffect?
If you don't pass an array of dependencies to useEffect, it will trigger after every render of the component, which can lead to unwanted side effect and performance class.
Does useEffect cover all lifecycle methods?
No, useEffect does not cover all lifecycle methods. It replaces component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount, but does not replace other methods such as should component update.
When should class components be used?
Class components can be used when we need access to React lifecycle methods, or if it's necessary to use component local state.
Have you heard anything about error boundary?
Error boundary is a React component that allows handling errors occurring anywhere in the React component tree inside it.
There is a lifecycle method component did catch. Do you know anything about it?
Component did catch is a lifecycle method of a component in React, which allows handling errors occurring in its child components.
In React, there are different hooks for caching. Can you tell me about useMemo and useCallback?
UseMemo is used to memorize calculations within a functional component, while useCallback memorizes callback functions. This helps avoid unnecessary calculations during component re-renders.
What does React Memo do?
This function prevents the component from re-rendering when its props have not changed.
In what cases does a component re-render?
A component re-renders when its props or state change. Additionally, a component may re-render when the context changes or when the force update method is called.
Do you know how to replace React Memo in class components?
In class components, you can use the should component update method. Additionally, you can use pure component. These components automatically implement shallow comparison logic for props and state, and they only update when changes occur in them. Another option is to use the reselect library in combination with container components.
Can you list the default React hooks and explain how each one is used?
Use state, used to add state to a functional component, returns a pair of values, the current state and a function to update it. UseEffect allows performing side effect in a functional component, for example, subscribing to events, changing the DOM, and etc. Takes a callback function containing the side effect logic. UseRef returns a mutable ref object which contains a .current property, useful for saving mutable values between renders. UseCallback memorizes a callback function, returning its memorized version, useful for preventing unnecessary re-renders of child components when the parent changes. UseMemo memoizes a value, returning its memoized version, useful for performing optimization by caching calculations. UseContext allows using the value of context created with React.createContext inside a functional component, returns the current context value. UseReducer, an alternative to useState, a more powerful hook for managing state, takes a reducer and initial state, returns the current state and a function to update it.